Imagine making $100,000 a year. You have a good job, a decent apartment, a car, maybe even a vacation once a year. By all definitions, you should be doing well. But somehow, you still feel broke. Your paycheck arrives, and within days, it's gone. Rent, groceries, insurance, subscriptions, bills, and suddenly, you're counting the days until the next paycheck again. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Because right now, millions of Americans making $70,000, $90,000, even $120,000 a year are all asking the same question. Why do I still feel broke? And the answer might surprise you. Because the real reason isn't just about income. It's about a system that has quietly made life more expensive than ever before. My name is Brinny, and I spend way much time thinking about why people who look financially reckless are sometimes better prepared for disaster than people who did everything right. If you've ever felt vaguely unsettled about how dependent your entire financial life is on one company, subscribe and hit For decades, earning $100,000 a year was considered a financial milestone. It meant success, stability, comfort. But in 2026, that number doesn't mean what it used to. In cities like New York City or San Francisco, a $100K salary can feel like barely surviving. After taxes, that salary might become about $70,000 take-home pay. Now let's break that down. Monthly income, about $5,800. Sounds decent, right? But then reality begins. Housing is the biggest expense most Americans face. In many cities today, rent for a basic one-bedroom apartment can easily reach $2,000 to $3,500 per month. In places like Los Angeles or Miami, rent has exploded over the last decade. Now imagine this situation. You make $5,800 per month. Your rent is $2,400. Suddenly, 40% of your income is gone instantly. And that's before you even think about food, or transportation, or healthcare, or anything else. This is what financial experts call the housing squeeze, and it's happening everywhere. Most people think inflation means prices going up slightly each year. But over the past few years, inflation has hit everyday essentials much harder. Groceries are a perfect example. Items that used to cost $100 a week can now easily cost $150 or more. Eggs, milk, meat, vegetables. Everything feels more expensive. Even simple things like eating out now cost dramatically more. A meal that used to be $12 is now $20. And when these increases happen across hundreds of purchases every month, your budget slowly gets squeezed tighter and tighter. When expenses rise faster than income, most people turn to credit cards, and this is where things start to spiral. According to data from Federal Reserve, Americans now hold over $1 trillion in credit card debt. But the real problem isn't the debt itself, it's the interest. Credit cards often charge 20 to 30% interest rates. That means a $5,000 balance can take years to pay off. And suddenly, part of every paycheck starts going toward debt instead of your future. Today, even people with good jobs often live paycheck to paycheck. This means money comes in, bills go out, nothing is left. No investing, no saving, no progress. And over time, this creates something dangerous: financial stress. You might look successful from the outside, but internally, you're worried about money all the time. Money stress isn't just about numbers. It affects how people feel about their lives. You see friends posting vacations online, luxury cars, new houses, perfect lifestyles, and it makes you wonder, why can't I get ahead? But here's the truth. Many of those people feel broke too, because social media only shows the highlight reel, not the debt, not the bills, not the financial pressure. Today, money moves faster than ever. Subscriptions auto-renew, bills auto-pay, credit cards make spending effortless, which means money disappears quietly without you even noticing. Streaming services, apps, food delivery, monthly memberships, each one feels small, but together they can add up to hundreds of dollars every month. So, if income is higher than ever, why do so many people feel broke? Because while income increased, the cost of living increased even faster.
Housing, healthcare, education, insurance, everything costs more, and the system quietly adapted so that even high salaries feel average.
Let's imagine someone named Alex. Alex works in marketing and earns $60,000 a year. For years, Alex dreams about getting a promotion. Finally, it happens. Alex now earns $85,000 a year. This should change everything, right? More money, more savings, more freedom. But strangely, 6 months later, Alex still feels just as broke. Why? Because something else changed too. Alex moved into a nicer apartment, started leasing a newer car, bought better clothes, upgraded gadgets, and suddenly that extra income disappeared. This is the lifestyle inflation trap. Lifestyle inflation happens when your spending increases every time your income increases. At first, the upgrades seem reasonable. You work hard, you deserve something nicer, and there's nothing wrong with improving your life. The problem happens when every raise becomes a reason to spend more. New apartment, better car, more expensive vacations, fancier restaurants. Over time, your lifestyle expands to match your income, and suddenly you're right back where you started, still waiting for the next paycheck. The reason lifestyle inflation is so dangerous is because it feels normal. When everyone around you upgrades their life, you feel pressure to do the same, especially in expensive cities like New York City or Los Angeles. In these places, the cost of living isn't just high, the expectations are high too. Nice apartments, trendy restaurants, weekend trips, luxury experiences. If you don't participate, you feel like you're falling behind. Humans naturally compare themselves to others. This is called relative wealth thinking. You don't judge your success by your actual financial position, you judge it by how you compare to people around you. If your neighbor buys a new car, suddenly your car feels old. If your coworker moves into a nicer apartment, your place feels smaller. And social media amplifies this effect dramatically. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok constantly show luxury lifestyles, luxury vacations, designer clothing, exotic experiences. What you don't see is the debt behind those lifestyles. Another reason lifestyle inflation has become worse is the rise of the subscription economy. 20 years ago, people bought things once. Today, almost everything is a monthly payment. Streaming services, music apps, cloud storage, food delivery memberships, fitness apps, even software. Many people now have 10 to 20 subscriptions running at the same time. Each one might only cost $10 or $15, but together they can easily exceed $200 or $300 per month. And because these payments are automatic, people rarely notice them.
Another major contributor to lifestyle inflation is car payments. When people earn more money, one of the first upgrades they make is their car. Instead of driving a reliable used car, they finance a new one. Monthly payments of $500, $700, or even $900 become common. And suddenly, a large portion of income is locked into a depreciating asset. This is one of the fastest ways money disappears, yet it's incredibly common, because cars are one of the most visible status symbols. There is also a psychological reason lifestyle inflation feels so satisfying. Every time you upgrade something in your life, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to pleasure and reward. Buying something new feels exciting. For a moment, it feels like progress. But that feeling fades quickly. And then you need the next upgrade. Bigger TV, better phone, more expensive vacation. This cycle never ends unless someone consciously breaks it. One of the strangest things about lifestyle inflation is that it can make people look successful, even when they are financially fragile. Someone might drive a luxury car, wear expensive clothes, live in a stylish apartment. But behind the scenes, they might have very little savings, no emergency fund, and significant debt. Financial success and the appearance of success are very different things. This is where a major difference appears between wealthy people and everyone else. Many wealthy individuals resist lifestyle inflation for a long time.
Instead of upgrading everything immediately, they keep their expenses relatively stable while their income grows. Then they invest the difference. Over time, those investments grow dramatically. One of the most common investment strategies is simply investing consistently into the S&P 500. Historically, this index has grown significantly over long periods of time, which means money invested today can grow substantially over decades. But this only works if you actually have money left to invest, and lifestyle inflation often eliminates that possibility. This is where a quiet divide begins to form in society. Two people might earn the same salary. One increases spending with every raise. The other keeps spending stable and invests the difference. 10 years later, their financial situations can look completely different. One person still feels broke, the other has built real wealth. The difference wasn't income, it was behavior. For many people, the realization comes late, maybe in their late 30s, maybe in their 40s. They suddenly notice something alarming. They've been working for decades, but their savings are minimal. Retirement still feels far away, and financial freedom seems impossible. That moment can be frightening, but it can also be the moment everything changes. Because once you understand lifestyle inflation, you can start controlling it. Instead of asking, "How much more can I spend?" wealthy thinkers ask a different question: "How much more can I invest?" That one shift in thinking can completely change someone's financial future. But lifestyle inflation isn't the only system keeping people financially stuck. There is another system that quietly drains money from millions of Americans every month. It's a system built on interest payments, credit cards, student loans, car loans, mortgages.
For many Americans, debt begins early, often before they even start their first real job. Student loans. For decades, higher education has been promoted as the path to a better life, a good degree, a stable career, financial success. And for many people, education absolutely provides opportunities, but it often comes with a heavy price. Students borrow tens of thousands of dollars to pay for tuition, housing, and books. By the time they graduate, they might already owe $30,000, $50,000, or even $100,000. According to data from the Federal Reserve, student loan debt in the United States has grown into a massive national burden, and the repayment period can last decades, which means before someone even starts building wealth, a portion of their income is already committed to paying off debt. But student loans are only the beginning. Credit cards are where the system really accelerates. Credit cards are incredibly convenient. You can buy something instantly, even if you don't have the money. Need groceries? Use a card. Unexpected car repair? Use a card. Vacation you can't quite afford? Use a card. The problem isn't the card itself. The problem is the interest rate. Many credit cards charge interest rates of 20 to 30% per year, which means if someone carries a balance, the amount they owe can grow rapidly. Credit card companies don't require you to pay your entire balance. Instead, they offer something called a minimum payment. This might be only 2% or 3% of the balance. At first glance, this seems helpful. It makes payments feel manageable. But in reality, it can keep someone in debt for years. Imagine someone owes $5,000 on a credit card. If they only make minimum payments, they might end up paying thousands of dollars in interest over time. Money that could have been invested or saved instead disappears into interest payments. Next comes the car. In many parts of the United States, owning a car isn't optional. It's necessary for work and daily life. But instead of buying affordable used cars, many people finance new ones. Monthly payments of $600 or $800 have become common, and because loans often last 5 to 7 years, people can spend a large portion of their working lives making car payments. Even worse, cars lose value quickly, which means by the time the loan is paid off, the car is often worth far less than what was originally paid. Then comes the largest debt most people ever take, a mortgage. Buying a home is often considered one of the biggest financial milestones in life, and for many people, it can absolutely be a valuable investment. But mortgages also lock people into decades of payments. A typical mortgage lasts 30 years, which means someone who buys a home at age 30 might still be paying for it at age 60. Over those decades, the total interest paid can be enormous.
In some cases, homeowners end up paying nearly double the original price of the house with interest included.
When you step back and look at the system as a whole, something interesting appears. Millions of people make monthly payments for student loans, credit cards, car loans, mortgages, and every month interest flows to financial institutions. This creates what economists sometimes describe as a wealth transfer system. Instead of money building wealth for individuals, it slowly transfers toward lenders. This doesn't mean debt is always bad, but it does mean that understanding how debt works is extremely important. One reason this system is so powerful is that debt has become normal. Almost everyone has it. Friends, coworkers, family members. Because it's common, it rarely feels dangerous. But when someone has multiple debts at once, the combined monthly payments can be overwhelming. Car payment, student loan payment, credit card payment, mortgage, insurance. Suddenly, a large portion of income is already committed before someone even spends money on everyday life. When someone carries too much debt, they enter a pressure loop. Step 1, income arrives. Step 2, debt payments are deducted. Step 3, remaining money must cover everything else. If unexpected expenses appear, more credit is often used, which increases debt further. Over time, this can trap people in a cycle that's difficult to escape. Interestingly, many financially successful people approach debt very differently. They try to avoid high-interest consumer debt, like credit cards. Instead, they focus on building assets. Assets are things that grow in value or produce income. Investments, businesses, real estate, stocks. One of the simplest ways people invest is through broad market indexes like the S&P 500. Instead of paying interest, their money begins earning returns. Over long periods of time, this difference can be dramatic. There are two ways interest can affect your life. You can pay it, or you can earn it. When someone carries high-interest debt, interest works against them. Their money slowly leaks away. But when someone invests consistently, interest begins working for them. This is often called compound growth. Money earns returns. Then those returns earn returns. Over decades, the growth can become powerful. For many people, the turning point comes when they realize something simple. Working harder alone won't solve the problem. Making more money helps, but if spending and debt keep growing too, nothing really changes. Real progress begins when someone controls their spending, their debt, and their investments. So if the system of rising costs, lifestyle inflation, and debt is keeping people stuck, how do some people still manage to build real wealth? What are they doing differently?
So far in this series, we uncovered three powerful forces that make many Americans feel broke. First, the rising cost of living. Then, the trap of lifestyle inflation. And finally, the debt system that quietly drains money every month. When you combine these three forces together, it's easy to understand why so many people feel financially stuck. But here's the surprising truth. Even in this expensive system, even with rising prices, some people are still quietly building wealth. Not because they earn millions, not because they are lucky, but because they follow a few simple principles that most people ignore. The biggest difference between people who stay broke and people who build wealth often starts with a single mindset shift. Most people think about money like this: how much can I afford to spend? But people who build wealth ask a different question: how much can I keep? Because wealth is not about how much money passes through your hands, it's about how much money stays with you and grows over time. Financially successful people often organize money into three simple categories: spend, save, invest. Most people focus almost entirely on spending, but wealth builders focus on the third bucket, investing, because investing allows money to grow even when you're not working. One of the most powerful habits in personal finance is something called paying yourself first. Instead of saving whatever money is left at the end of the month, you save or invest first. Then you spend what remains.
For example, if someone earns $5,000 per month, they might automatically invest $500 or $1,000 before paying other expenses. At first, this might feel difficult, but over time it becomes normal, and that habit slowly builds wealth. One of the most common strategies used by everyday investors is investing regularly into broad market funds. These funds track large groups of companies rather than betting on individual stocks. One of the most well-known examples is the S&P 500. This index represents hundreds of major companies across the United States. Historically, it has grown significantly over long periods of time. Of course, markets go up and down in the short term, but over decades, long-term investors have often seen substantial growth. This is why many financial advisors recommend consistent, long-term investing instead of trying to predict short-term market movements. One of the most powerful forces in investing is time. When someone starts investing early, their money has more time to compound. For example, someone who invests $500 per month for 30 years could potentially accumulate hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on market returns. But someone who waits 10 or 15 years to start investing may end up with far less, even if they invest the same monthly amount. Time multiplies money, and the earlier someone starts, the more powerful that multiplication becomes.
One of the biggest surprises about wealth is that many wealthy people don't look wealthy. They don't always drive luxury cars. They don't always live flashy lifestyles. In fact, many so-called quiet millionaires live fairly normal lives. They drive reliable cars. They avoid unnecessary debt. They invest consistently for decades. Their wealth grows slowly and quietly in the background. While others are focused on appearances, they are focused on long-term financial freedom. Ultimately, wealth is not about luxury. It's about freedom. Freedom to choose your career. Freedom to take time off. Freedom to handle emergencies without stress. Freedom to support family. Money becomes powerful when it gives you choices, and those choices come from financial stability. Remember the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle we discussed earlier? Breaking that cycle doesn't happen overnight. It happens step by step. First, reducing unnecessary expenses, then building an emergency fund, then gradually investing. Each step creates a little more breathing room. Over time, that breathing room grows into financial security. Building wealth rarely requires dramatic changes. Instead, it usually comes down to small habits repeated consistently. Spending slightly less than you earn, avoiding high-interest debt, investing regularly, staying patient. These habits might not feel exciting in the moment, but over decades they can completely transform someone's financial future. So why do so many people in America feel broke today? Because the system around them is designed for spending. Advertisements encourage buying. Social media encourages comparison. Credit systems encourage borrowing. But wealth grows in the opposite direction. It grows through patience, discipline, and long-term thinking. The real secret to building wealth isn't a complicated strategy. It's a simple pattern repeated for years. Earn money, spend wisely, invest consistently, and give your money time to grow. Over time, those simple habits can create extraordinary results. Feeling broke doesn't mean you failed. It often means you've been navigating a system that makes spending easy and wealth building difficult. But once you understand how that system works, you can start making different choices. And those choices, repeated over time, can completely change your financial future. If this series helped you understand money in a new way, remember this: financial freedom doesn't happen overnight, but every small step you take today can move you closer to it. And sometimes, the most powerful financial decision you can make is simply deciding to